Nancy Pelosi travels to Taiwan and sparks a crisis between the United States and China. First, we'll examine Beijing's military response. Are all the sorties and missile firings really Beijing's practice for an actual invasion? Then we'll look at the many repercussions for U.S.-China relations. Can the two powers recover from this new low? Is this the start of a Cold War? I've got the experts on it all. Also,
justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more.
America kills a leader of Al-Qaeda once again. So just what is the state of terrorism today? How big is the threat to the West?
But first, here's my take. The world's two most powerful nations find themselves in a hair-raising crisis that could spill into military conflict. And the strangest aspect of all this is how predictable it was. Taiwan's status has long been known as the most sensitive issue for both the United States and China, one that has been carefully managed for 5 decades. And Nancy Pelosi had signaled her desire to go to Taiwan months ago. But on the American side, a series of errors, many of them tactical and driven by domestic politics, have resulted in a dangerous reality. There is no serious working relationship between the 21st century's two most powerful actors. From the start, the Biden administration adopted a policy toward China of open hostility and criticism. At the very first face-to-face meeting between senior officials from both sides, Secretary of State Antony Blinken decided to deliver a harangue, to which his Chinese counterpart defiantly responded. That Blinken's remarks were designed for a domestic audience can be seen in the fact that it was delivered in public, in front of television cameras, a format that would only harden Beijing's position, not change it. As Jeffrey Bader, President Obama's top advisor on Asia, has noted of the Biden team, despite their having criticized Trump's foreign policy bitterly, when it comes to the greatest foreign policy challenge facing the United States, how to deal with the rise of China, they have continued and mimicked Trump's destructive approach. He added, this has prompted glee among departed Trump officials who proudly declared themselves innovators and the Biden administration unimaginative and dutiful implementers. Ryan Haas, another top Obama-China expert, argues that the communication channels for managing tensions have collapsed. But while the Biden administration's approach has been tactically flawed and can be adjusted, Beijing's errors are much more serious and strategic. Over the past decade, under President Xi Jinping, China has changed its Taiwan policy with potentially catastrophic consequences. Modern China's paramount leader, Deng Xiaoping, outlined an innovative solution to the Taiwan problem when he offered it in 1979, a solution that came to be known as one country, two systems. Taiwan could eventually become a part of China formally, Deng proposed, but it could maintain its own political system, administrative laws, even its own armed forces. Taiwan rejected the offer, but Deng urged strategic patience. He then decided to demonstrate the vitality of this policy by applying it to Hong Kong, once the British handed over the city-state to Beijing in 1997, spelling out these promises in an agreement with Great Britain and in Hong Kong's basic law, its de facto constitution. For several years, Beijing observed one country, two systems in Hong Kong and held out the prospect of the same for Taiwan. Trade between Beijing and Taipei increased dramatically. In 2015, President Xi met with Taiwan's then president, Mao Ying-jeou, and they spoke of enhancing ties, something that is inconceivable today. Deng's basic strategy towards Taiwan was that as long as China remained open, dynamic, and accommodating, time was on its side. Taiwan would come to realize that there were many benefits and few costs to being formally attached to the mainland. But over the past 10 years, President Xi's policies have been to make China more closed, less dynamic, and significantly less accommodating. Nowhere has the latter policy been more clear than in Hong Kong, where Beijing has reneged on virtually every important guarantee it made regarding the city-state's freedom and autonomy. The results are plain to see in Taiwan. In the 1990s, few Taiwanese advocated for independence, and many believed reunification with China was inevitable. Today, according to National Chengchi University's Election Study Center, support for independence is much stronger, nearly doubling since 1997, the year of the Hong Kong handover, though most Taiwanese still hope for a continuation of the status quo. People's sense of Taiwanese identity, as distinct from Chinese identity, is also much stronger, and it is now closely wrapped up with being a democracy. As Xi bullies Taiwan more militarily and economically, these trends, especially among younger people, grow in size and intensity. China claims its goal is peaceful reunification with Taiwan. If that's really the case, then Beijing should reverse course and return to Deng's policies, announce that Hong Kong will be allowed all the freedoms it was promised, promise Taiwan the same, end economic sanctions on Taiwan, and stop threatening the island with dangerous military maneuvers. It is Xi's policies that are making the Taiwanese people reject any prospect of cooperation with the mainland, let alone eventual reunification. But that reversal is not going to happen, and it leads to the central dilemma. On the issue of Taiwan, Beijing now recognizes time is not on its side. Every year, the island becomes more likely to break free. And this has created a strategic challenge for Beijing, one that could turn into a catastrophe for the world.